All right, so we are back with part two. Finished up all of Survivor Series because, as you mentioned, it was a pretty short show. So we're back here, obviously, to talk about the craziest return, R-Truth returning in a Ruffles commercial.
He's so good. I love R-Truth, and I missed him, and it was so great to see him again.
But obviously, we're talking about Mr. CM Punk, Mr. 3 returns in the past 2 years.
Goodness. But this is the big one, right?
Yeah.
That man burnt the bridge, scorched the earth, right? Said never again. But we found ourselves a boat to make our way back to the other side of the river.
Yeah. At this point, if you're still believing wrestlers, that's on you.
I'm just saying, right?
Yeah. I saw a lot of people, obviously different people having their different opinions, frustration, happiness, pulling out the receipts, and to me, it's like, at this point with me, I'm just like, what wrestler isn't a, not to be harsh, but what wrestler isn't a hypocrite at this point? And if you're still believing Mr. CM Punk isn't the biggest one, the man returned to AEW, and in his opening, the second time he returned, his first promo was, "Tell me when I'm telling lies," and it was a promo almost completely filled with lies.
Goodness gracious. Jack's got the pipe bomb today.
No. I don't know if you remember, but I'm pretty sure he said something about selling out like an arena in Japan, and everyone instantly went and checked, and they were like, I don't know what arena he's talking about. He never sold out no arena in Japan.
Amongst all the posts and memes, Jack, about CM Punk's return, one of them that happened so quickly was, hey, I just got word that CM Punk was in a fight backstage. And something that we can talk about here that we don't see on the broadcast, but that is all over the internet, is what's not being shown on camera.
Yeah. And
because that camera's got that tight close-up on CM Punk and all his black, white, and gray hair. But what's happening behind the camera, Jack?
Oh, we got Seth Rollins looking like probably what Ace Steel was looking like on that fateful day in AEW when that fight happened.
He's about to bite a man and throw a chair or kick a dog or something.
Yeah.
Seth Rollins, who's holding him at bay?
Yeah, he's cursing up a storm, and there's Michael Cole of all people holding him back. Which
Jack,
to all
Rhodes is out there, Sami Zayn's out there, Randy Orton. I got to talk about Randy Orton for a second, right? But Cole is the one that's holding him back.
Yeah,
okay, and Corey Graves is holding his belt. Goodness.
Yeah, and then you have all that, and then you just see Randy Orton still in the cage, waving hi to CM Punk.
Did you know what I love about Randy Orton?
Huh.
Because of all the debris and weapons in the ring, he just pulls up a chair. He's not going to stand. He's just hanging out and sitting.
Yeah, he just pulls out the chair. But, yeah, you got Seth Rollins cursing up a storm, and you got a lot of people being like, oh my gosh, look at this animosity, and then to all the realistic people, man, look at how Seth is working everyone in the crowd and back home that's going to see video of this, and they're going to think it's real.
And we've heard Seth have some pretty strong feelings about CM Punk, right?
Yeah.
That, could very well be real, could very well be a work, but I'll tell you what, Jack, reflecting on this in the last couple of days, Seth Rollins is exactly where CM Punk was 10 years ago. That man wants nothing more than to be in the main event of WrestleMania, so much so that I think he was even envious of his wife when Becky Lynch did it. He was like, should have been me,
Yeah.
Here he is, Jack. I would close out Night 2, WrestleMania, Philadelphia, with Punk and Rollins.
I could see it happening, especially because, it's no offense to Cody, but after what happened at this year's WrestleMania, as much as defeating Roman would be a crowning moment, like if that's still in the plans for him to do, it doesn't, like to me at least, it doesn't have the luster as if he did it this year,
Right. Yeah, I think after the year, right, I think it's a fine Night 1 main event.
Yeah.
Dang fine. But night 2, we got to give it to CM Punk, Seth Rollins, killing each other.
Yeah. And it was the way I was putting it to my dad, was that do I have any doubt in my mind that Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, do these 4 guys and maybe potentially others, do they have real life animosity towards CM Punk due to their previous interactions? I believe it. I'd likely think there is. But do I think they're going to let that bleed onto like the product, No. These are guys who, they're just going to make it known of whether they want to work with them or not,
Yeah.
Like, if I think it probably will happen, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if like a Kevin Owens per se would be like, cool, I don't want anything to do with him. As long as you keep him away from me and my stories, I'm fine with him being here,
And I think compared to where he's coming to us from, right? I think the WWE is just such a well-oiled machine that man isn't going to get away with anything, Yeah. I hope when he came back, he was like, I hope I'll fire you on your birthday. Like, you pull something, right? Like, I will happily...
I'll fire you on Christmas.
I will, without any thought or any hesitation, do something to you if you act a fool, You're going to read word for word what's on this paper.
Yeah.
And I would love it, Jack, if Punk loses his first match back.
Oh, man. Could you imagine?
Like, remember what they did Brock? Remember what they did to Brock after he came back?
Yeah.
Losing to Cena right away?
Yeah.
It's like, listen, Punk, we'd love to have you back. You're going to get that WrestleMania moment. We're going to beat you to the ground for a while.
Oh, man.
And who was it? Who was it that said, must have been somebody on YouTube, right? Like, CM Punk's come and become exactly what he hated. He is a part-timer, Jack, who's coming in and taking all the shine.
That wasn't the one I saw. The one I saw was he became everything he hated. He's the New York Yankees.
Is that a condemnation on Punk? Oh, I guess so. Cubs guy wouldn't want to be a Yankee either, huh?
That's what he told John Cena.
Yes, he did.
So everyone was using that on him. They were like, "You've become the Yankees now."
I just sent it to you on Instagram. One of my favorite memes about this was Triple H. I don't know if you remember, Jack. Do you remember when when Vince McMahon brought the NWO to WWE?
Yeah.
You remember? I'm going to inject the WWE with a lethal dose of poison.
Yeah.
So Triple H is in the chair and he says, "I'm going to inject the WWE with a lethal dose of poison." And in the back of the chair where the NWO logo was, it's Punk's flag, your shirt design.
Yeah, I saw that too. But yeah, it was funny because like when the return happened, I was shocked, and then afterward, I was left thinking to myself, I'm like, how do I feel about this? Do I feel happy like I did when he first returned after 7 years?
Yeah.
Do I feel like or like not really interested like when he returned the second time and started Collision and all that for AEW, and basically got his own show. Like, how am I feeling about this return? I was like going back and forth with a lot of these things where I was like, I don't know. To me, it feels a bit hypocritical given all the stuff he said, in the past. And then a part of me was like, well, if you keep up with the podcast, since he returned the second time, we don't cover AEW as regularly, but from the shows we've covered, you've heard a lot of me basically say, like, I'm not too interested in what he's doing. Like, if he does great work, obviously I'll be interested, but, like, that second return, I wasn't too invested in, He had that great match with Samoa Joe at Wembley, but, like, for the most part, a lot of the stuff he was doing, especially on TV at the time, wasn't really interesting. I was, like, going back and forth. And at the end, I just came to the conclusion of, like, I'll keep an eye on him, but I'm not going to be like some of these people who are letting it have such a grand effect on their lives. Because to me, at the end of the day, I'm like, it's wrestling, man. I saw a bunch of people kind of reiterating this where they were like, do you guys not have other hobbies out of wrestling? Like, we're not trying to be mean and say that, wrestling can't be a hobby, but a lot of you people seem to be taking this way too seriously and, like, close to home than others. You know, like a lot of people are getting their jokes off about, you know, CM Punk, but a lot of these people are coming off like they've been wronged and hurt by CM Punk choosing to go back to WWE.
You know, and I think it's warranted. You know, that guy left such a bad taste in everyone's mouth at the last place, you know? And WWE has been on such a roll with all of the stories they've been telling. None of the stories they've been telling have, like, telegraphed or have any room for CM Punk. So it's a real, like, monkey wrench, right? Where does he fit in any of it? He doesn't, right? So there's a potential to, like, ruin what we've started. You know what I heard somebody say today? Like, how bad must it be for Damian Priest to be in a position where supposedly he's going to challenge for the championship, maybe win the championship? Can he? Is there any room up there for him? I think there is. I think amongst all the like chaos and all the like uncertainty, who's going to challenge Seth? Damian Priest, I think, can swoop in, and he's got a bunch of baby faces to come after him, right? But he's being lost in the shuffle. He's being pushed even further down because, like I was telling you, it's becoming so top heavy. But I'll tell you what, I'm a selfish wrestling fan, and the prospect of Punk versus Seth, Punk versus Roman, Punk versus Drew, Punk versus Sammy, Punk versus Jay, Punk versus Cody. I want them all. I want all of them. Punk versus Austin, Jack. Punk versus Austin.
It's crazy how
I didn't want it, but now I want it.
Yeah.
Punk versus Owens.
Yeah, I definitely like thought about that too, because you know, a lot of people had sort of the same sentiment where they were like, you know, it kind of sucks for the guys who have been here day in, day out. You know, the way a lot of people feel about Roman. These guys have been here day in, day out working, and someone's just going to come in and get stuff handed to them on a silver platter, you know? So I could understand that sentiment, but, like, to me, at the same time, when you look at it, like, to me, I just never see that sort of mindset from a lot of the guys in WWE, you know? Because at least in my eyes, from what I see from a lot of these wrestlers, they're just happy to be getting the paydays that they are, you know?
I like, not to, he doesn't listen. Like Zack Ryder, you think was just like being paid in action figures, and he was the happiest anyone could ever be.
The only one that I can think of that could have maybe some slight sort of annoyance with CM Punk being brought on is Drew McIntyre. And his reason is different from the other ones that I previously named, you know, like Owens and Roman, who kind of have like pre-standing beef with Punk. The reason I think Drew can have a slight annoyance with Punk is, as we know, WWE got bought out by TKO, and, you know, for the past like year or so, we've seen them be on a hiring freeze where they haven't really hired too many people in the free agent market. And along with that, we've also seen, for example, with Drew McIntyre, them being kind of slow to the contract extension talks, you know, where they're like, we don't really want to offer you a new contract yet, or like extend you, and also more so in the line of, we're not too keen on handing out big contracts right now. So like I could imagine like a Drew, like I'm not saying that he is, or I'm not trying to like put it out there, but I'm just saying like I could understand in a sense if he has a slight annoyance in the sense of like, you guys don't want to pay me despite the fact that I've been here for the past he's been here since 2017 actually, so the past 6 years. I've been here for the past 6 years, and you guys don't want to pay me, you don't want to give me a contract extension, but you'll go out and give it to this guy, you know?
Yeah, which, you know, is coming out in storyline as, like, I think, like, the frustrations you described that he could have with TKO and management, he seems to be targeting towards Seth as the champion, right? Him being overlooked, him not getting his shot, him being denied, you know, his flowers. And I saw a really great post that compared him to Sami Zayn. Both of them, Jack, were done dirty by the Bloodline in high-profile championship matches with Roman Reigns in their hometown. And they're both representative of two different ways of reacting were responding to that occurrence. You got Drew, super bitter, won't let it go, drives him mad. And you got Sammy, who really in a healthy way has moved on, right? Is hopeful, didn't let him get it down. So, like, it's this really cool dichotomy between those two characters.
Yeah, I see that too. But, there's definitely, like, so much to consider with this return,
Absolutely. And I hope it goes well. I certainly hope for the best. And I gotta think, watching CM Punk get be just showered with them cheers on Saturday. I thought immediately about Edge, who had the polar opposite experience going in the other direction. Because AEW is struggling for one reason or another. You and I talked right before we started recording about perhaps it being the huge cost that tickets are for their events. You heard QT Marshall depart from the company saying that it's going in a direction that is contrary to where it started, a creative direction that we all feel, I think, see evidence of, right?
Yeah, I saw a lot of that too, and it's weird because some reports, obviously, in comparison to other sort of, areas of journalism that we see from various sports, it's much harder to do in wrestling because it's very hard to tell what is the correct sort of statement being put out, or who's correctly reporting on these subjects. A lot of time, there's a lot of integrity in journalism in the NFL, NBA, where it's the main people that you go to for journalism news, it's they're making sure that they got the stuff right, because it can be costly if they're reporting the wrong things, Whereas in wrestling,
absolutely,
how often do we see misinformation being spread out there, big, quotes being taken out of context?
How quickly can you and I, Jack, find a report from the last month saying WWE have stopped talks with CM Punk?
Yeah. So from what I did see,
the creator, that was a lie.
the thing I did see pertaining to QT Marshall's departure was that apparently he cited that they were trying too hard to be like New Japan, and then a lot of people found out that it was because he basically referred to everything that's no storytelling, just wrestling is New Japan, and everyone was like, he must have not watched a lot of New Japan, because New Japan has some great stories that they've put out in just the past decade alone.
But they tell them stories, Jack, in the match through their commentary, right? For all things considered, I think it's exactly how it's described, and it's how I consume it, right? There's a big old match happening on the 4th. I'll be there.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's kind of hard for me as a fan to take it serious when it's coming from the guy that was doing those MTV rip-off segments, and I'm just if that's your direction you want a company to go in, maybe I'm fine with it going in a different direction than what you have.
That's funny. Hey, how about this, Jack? So CM Punk, I don't know if you saw his promo on Raw, right? But he says, I've changed, and we heard it in the press conference, Triple H talking about how both of them have changed, and he says, anybody who's the same person in 10 years, you're doing something wrong, right?
Yeah.
And this guy on YouTube goes, yeah, but Punk was Punk 6 months ago. Punk was you know what I mean? We're all worried about the Punk he was half a year ago in England.
Oh, man. But, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how AEW responds. As a fan, I hope they don't, kind of panic in a way, in the sense of they start changing up so many different things, from a viewer standpoint. Obviously it's only my perspective of what I like. I don't know what the general audiences would like. But like for me, it's like at this point, you gotta find your own identity. You know, you gotta find something that sets you apart. And this goes back to you know, like what I was saying about the WWE and what they need to do with the United States Championship. Remember how I was saying like they need to find its identity because the Intercontinental Championship has its own sort of identity. We need something for this, and it's the same thing for these various, you know, wrestling promotions. It's like we go to various wrestling promotions for different things, you know. AEW has to figure out what is it that they're going to do different from any other place, you know.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and it's a bit upsetting to me because at some points they've shown that ability to be something different. Hangman versus Swerve is not anything like we've seen on mainstream wrestling in quite some time, you know. Like, you can obviously find wrestling like that in the indies, such as like GCW or different like promotions in Japan that will do the occasional death match.
Hey, check this out, Jack. AEW has to figure out what it offers that's different from everybody else. And it also is burdened with the responsibility of also making sense of what ROH is and what it offers. They're currently unsure about both. They're really like putting a lot of something from both, and it's not being consumed, Jack.
Yeah, honestly, there's like so much that like needs to change, and again, it's like it's up to Tony Khan for him to like respond. And obviously, the big issue for him is that unlike WWE for the most part, he's, for whatever reason, under the control of the network he's on. Like, obviously, WWE has certain things that they abide by to their networks, but it's like, we're in 2023, and Tony Khan can't even book a second women's match because Warner Brothers doesn't like the numbers that it gets whenever there is a second women's match, so he isn't allowed to do more stuff with his women, you know. But at the same time, it's like, there's also stuff, like I'm saying, that they do good, but for whatever reason, they don't implement it on their, like, actual main shows. Like, they have a lot of times their talent cut, like, these promos for, like, internet exclusives that they only post on, like, Instagram and Twitter, and you're just like, why isn't this on the main show, you know? Like, they started doing that now for the Continental Classic where, you know, Daniel Garcia or Brody King talks before or after their match, and they'll include it on the main show, you know? So it's like, it's little stuff and like that.
I don't know if that was on this last episode or if you said that off air, but you said that this Continental Classic is sort of like steering the ship in the right direction, where we're getting like profiles of the wrestlers, right? This sort of running carousel of matches you want to see, right?
Yeah, and involving talent that we don't normally see against each other.
Right. This will give a lot of folks time on air that, I mean, for a company that's got like 3 or 4 shows, you know, there are people left off. How are you leaving people off? You've got 4 shows.
And not only that, it's like, what are you so afraid of, in a sense, you know? Like, obviously WWE has been around for longer, so they have that advantage, but like, why are you so afraid to give away certain matches for free? There is no guarantee that some of these guys will, you know, be healthy, you know? Like, it's not to say like it's going to happen, but like, who's to say that Kenny Omega is available for however long you think? Something could happen to where he's not available, and then that match never happens, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, you gotta do it quickly, and like, the good thing about like this tournament is that it allows for those matches to happen without needing like some grand story, you know? But the issue is, more often than not, AEW does a lot of tournaments, so it just feels like an excuse or like an easy way to do those matches without needing a story, you know?
Jack, do you think the Devil should have been revealed at Full Gear, or do you think they made the right call to put it off?
I think they made a mistake putting it off for as long as they have, because now at this point, especially with CM Punk going to WWE, it's lost a lot of the like luster behind, or like the shine behind it, in the sense of like who are we expecting it to be at this point, you know? Again, I'm not the only person in the audience, but like, if you're gonna have the devil turn out to be Jack Perry, I'm not interested, you know? And like that's another issue is we've seen it happen before. We saw it when Chris Statlander went down. For whatever reason, Tony Khan doesn't know how to call an audible.
Oof, oof.
Like MJF and Adam Cole are still the Ring of Honor tag champs despite both being injured. And it's just like, whatever story you had planned, you gotta move on because now both your guys are injured, you know?
And MJF buried that entire division single-handedly by successfully defending a team belt on his own.
Yeah, and like that's another thing that like people have been finally sharing a similar frustration that I have. You've heard me talk about it multiple times on this show, and that is, why are we still, championing people who work through injuries? Especially champions. It's like, no, you're putting short-term success over long-term plans, If a champion gets hurt, the best thing to do is have them relinquish the title, because even if it screws up plans, you're at least not jeopardizing the health of your competitors where it could get worse,
It's funny? Like, I almost feel like this is the hesitation to relinquish the championship comes from, I think, 2022, when there were so many relinquished championships?
Yeah.
Like, it happened a lot. And I'm sure there was some knee-jerk reaction of, we did that too often. Yeah. But, kudos to Samoa Joe, working through his injury, relinquished the TV championship like you ought to. Oh, wait, Jack, he isn't hurt at all. He's in the best shape of his life, doing the best character work, and then that happened.
Yeah, the healthy guy relinquishes it, but not the injured person. Like, it makes me think about how, like, Britt Baker, for the longest time, has apparently been, like, struggling with back issues. Now, I don't think we've seen her in quite some time, so maybe she's finally taken the time off to rehab it. But for the longest time, it was like she was working with back issues, and it's like, why are we championing this? You need to take time off to get healed up, because how many times do we see people criticize wrestlers for doing certain spots and saying, like, oh, you're gonna regret that when you're older, and it's like, so these people that are working through injuries aren't going to regret this later on when their careers are likely shortened because they thought it was a good idea to work through the injuries rather than take time off, heal up, It's something you and I talked about, I think, years ago, saying, like, I think it was during COVID, we were like, wrestling doesn't have an off season, Like, these guys don't get, ample time to rest up, and it's like, it's almost seen as like a blessing to have time to rest up at times.
Hey, get this, Jack. Randy Orton, speaking of the injuries, the bump cards, like Randy Orton, people think is in his last run with the WWE, He's out there saying he's in it for 10 more years, but however long it is, you think this is it. And I think he was moving real slow and real cautiously in that War Games match, and it was a big help to him that it was 10 guys out there, Like, he didn't have to do a lot. He could just still get his feet wet, get his ring rust off. But somebody pointed out that this man who's maybe in the last stretch, his last run with the company, is 43. Damian Priest, meanwhile, on the up, right? On the rise, hitting his stride, is 41.
Yeah, I saw that.
Two guys, almost the exact same age, in way different shapes, right? And you got Balor, right? Just in a significantly better shape than the guys who came before him, probably because they're taking relatively better care of themselves.
Yeah, So it's like, you hear MJF, I think he has like a torn labrum or something like that, and he still wants to like work through it. And it's like, dude, whatever plans you had, just postpone them. Like, that's why I think, like I said, I think they took too long with the Devil reveal, because it's like, if MJF goes down injured and has to miss time,
the Devil comes around and says, "It's me." It's, hey, where's MJF?
Yeah, like, what are you gonna do then? Like, you're gonna put off the Devil reveal for so long that people are either gonna forget about it or they're not gonna care by the time it comes around. And even more so, whoever the Devil is, their plans now get nixed and put off because they have to wait for Adam Cole and MJF to come.
MJF.
And
oof.
I don't know, like,
poor little engine that could. Goodness. Well, once they get on some kind of streaming service, I'll do what I can to support them.
That's how I feel too.
I don't see myself buying at World's End. Like, I can't imagine the kind of match that I need to have on at World's End for me to buy it.
Yeah, I feel the same way where I'm just like, I don't really know what they could book, especially because I'm not like super interested in a lot of, especially like the champions they have right now. I was interested in the TBS title stuff. I still am. The tag titles are kind of odd to me right now because it's like I like Ricky Starks. I like what he's got going with Big Bill, but the stories they've been kind of doing around those two, I'm like, I don't know. It's confusing. I don't at all care about the trios titles at this point. It feels like they're a hindrance to the tag division at this point.
Who are the trios champ?
The Acclaimed right now.
Oh, that's right, with Billy Gunn. Yeah, get this, Jack. Like, you've got tag team champions, but you also have the House of Black coming after FTR for some reason.
Yeah.
They've targeted FTR. It's going to be a good match, I think, kind of, maybe. But why?
And also, I just have to mention, it's like a nitpick, but I have to mention because I know it'll likely annoy you a bit too. They had Ricky cutting a promo, and he said something that I was like, you shouldn't be pointing that out. He said something along the lines of like, we're the tag team champions, and we're two singles guys. We're not even tag guys. And I'm like, I don't know if you should be pointing that out, that you're two singles competitors.
That's not the brag you think it is.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if that should be something to point out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hopeful. I have no doubt they'll turn things around, but like, kind of like how last year there was like a reset when they, started the year with the redesign, it's like they need to do something where it's like, I don't need like a hard reset, hard rebuild, but like just retool some things as you head into this new year, like really look at your roster and decide what is it you want to do. Like I said, what do you want either to do different or what do you want to be the focus, like what is it that
who do you want to be the focus? Like, who are you going to build up? Like, nobody is built up. I'm not excited. Like, Keith Lee was being interviewed backstage about, I've had it, and I'm going to I'm not going to wait for anything. I'm going to take what I deserve or something. And you're like, Drew McIntyre is doing that, right? Drew McIntyre is like, now I scowl and I mean, and I'm going to take what I deserve. AEW is a whole roster of Drew McIntyres. They're all literally saying the same thing. I've been held back. Management doesn't know what to do with me. And you're like, stop telling me that. I know.
and especially, that's the thing I get annoyed with the most with AEW is how much of these, like, work shoots that they do where you got FTR complaining about their position on the air. You got Malachi Black complaining about it. You got Andrade making tweets about it. You got all these guys that are just like...
You got Buddy Murphy saying, send me back to mommy,
Yeah, and I'm just like... That's something I saw a lot of people saying where it's like, it's not to be harsh, but like, anyone who doesn't want to be there and doesn't want to buy into whatever vision you have going forward, don't be afraid to cut them loose because it's only going to be a detriment to you, Like,
and watch the WWE, Jack, do it better. They got CM Punk and Seth Rollins blurring that line like crazy, Jack.
Yeah, and
they got people legit wondering if this guy's already ruined the place, right? And I think after Monday, they made it abundantly clear. Everybody's in on the take. We're all going to go on this crazy ride together, right?
Yeah.
But, they got Seth and CM Punk doing it better.
Yeah, especially because it's like, I look at AEW and I can tell who's bought in, You got a guy like Roosh who's been taking like pretty much nothing but L's, but any opportunity he gets, he goes out there and shows out because he knows it's going to pay off, Like, a lot of people talk about how, I guess, like, in his past, like, either in Mexico or in Ring of Honor, he was known to be kind of hard to work with. Yet the moment he got to AEW, he was on his best behavior because that's how much he wanted this opportunity, to be involved with AEW. You got guys like that. You got guys like the different guys in the Continental Classic who know that they're mainly there to, like, maybe only get one win, like a Jay Lethal or I'm trying to think who in the blue block might only get one win. Like, I don't really know who in the blue league might only get one win. That one might be a bit more of a toss up. But you know, guys like Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal, who kind of know they're not going to get a lot of wins in this tournament, but they're still willing to buy in. You got that versus, you know, a guy like Miro, who a lot of people are interested in. They like the work he does, but he's a guy who would rather, you know, not take pins, not want to be a part of storylines unless he's the guy coming out on top, you know. And it's just like, what, you know, as much as, you know that if you were to cut him, he'd go right back to WWE probably, and they'd start doing stuff with him and people would complain. It's like, that might have to be, you know, a bullet that you just have to bite if it means that your product improves, because you no longer have to worry about, well, I got this unhappy talent, but I can't make them happy because they want to always be winning and, you know, they want to be this and that when these are my plans for them, you know?
You know?
So, I don't know. Like, there's just so much that, like, Tony Khan especially has to reevaluate, in my opinion, looking forward, you know? Like I said, really look at who is bought into this, who really wants it, you know? The two biggest ones I can name to you right now are Swerve and Hangman, you know? And that's not just me saying that as, like, them being two of my favorites right now. It's like, look at Hangman after 2022, you know, after all he went through in 2022 was at the lowest point of his character arc, in the sense of, like, they barely had any plans for him. He was directionless, you know?
Swerve was too. Swerve, you know, out there, like, his involvement with the Mogul Embassy, right, and Prince Nana and those guys, you're like, oh gosh, you grouped them with a group that's going nowhere. But, like, especially somehow defying all the odds, has made himself to be the entity and the, like, you know, the powerhouse that he is.
And especially even more so when you remember what the original, you know, Mogul affiliates was, where he was paired with, you know, Parker Bordeaux and that other guy, Trench, and he was stuck in that feud with Keith Lee where, like, we never even got a payoff match for it. And it was like, he could have easily been like a lot of these other guys and been like, I'm not being used right, this and that. But no, he played the long game. He put his faith that, you know, things would work out. And now he's in what is likely going to be AEW's feud of the year, you know, where him and Hangman have been putting in great work. And people are enjoying the work that these two have done together. So it's like, I look at that, and these two were getting praised even before the death match with just their plain old wrestling match that they had at Wrestle Dream, you know?
Yep.
So just look at what you're doing right here and figure out how to apply it to all these other areas, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much that they got to get nailed down. But like I said, it's not like I've given up hope on them, you know? It's like, I'm saying all this because, like, at the end of the day, I just want to see these wrestling companies get better, you know? The same criticisms I give on WWE and how I want them to improve, I do the same for AEW, for New Japan, for Stardom, you know? You can hear me give out all these different, like criticisms that I have, but also, like, nothing, like, crazy, you know? Like, I'm not, like, asking them to do anything crazy. It's like, these are valid ways that I think you could potentially improve your product with, you know?
How many minutes we got?
6.
Okay, right on. Yeah. Let's say we end with, you know, CM Punk's back. What's the big CM Punk match you're most excited for?
Let's see. This was one thing I was struggling with a bit because I was like, man, who do I really want to see him against in WWE? Because, like, there was a couple matchups that I really wanted to see in AEW. In WWE, I don't know. I guess the one that intrigues me the most is Kevin Owens, just because, like, I know the real life story behind it. So I'm just like, I wouldn't be upset if Owens wasn't, like, down to do the story, but I wonder, like, how they would go about this story. You know, if they were willing to, you know, in my mind, it would play out very similar to how the Eddie Kingston one played out, you know? Where Owens would be the guy in WWE to call him out on his stuff and be like, you're not the good guy that everyone's painting you out to be, you know?
Oof. Yeah.
Like, everyone looks at you as this rebel, this guy that they can rally behind, but they don't see the guy that you are in the locker room, the guy that gets mad at another guy for wearing a t-shirt to wrestle in, you know? For a guy who puts another guy down for just the way he wants to do things, kind of like how Eddie Kingston was saying, you know?
Yeah.
They're doing something similar too, which I don't know if they're going to be able to do it again if MJF continues to work injured, but like they're doing something similar with Wardlow where he's like, you know, oh, you think this friendship you have with Adam Cole, you know, it's been able to turn the public's eye on you, you know, like change their perception on you, but I know the real you, you know, like I'm not going to let this act fool me like it's fooling everyone else. It's like I can imagine them doing something similar with Kevin Owens.
Nice.
How about you, sir?
For me, I want to see CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. Let's see that. Let's see him versus the Tribal Chief. I don't know if it comes before or after Cody finishes the story, but that's just two big powerhouses. You know what I mean? Like CM Punk's coming to a whole new world, right? He called it home, but home looks so different than it did 10 years ago.
Yeah, this home has a Samoan Spike waiting for him.
Woo! Woo! And Paul Heyman's on the other side over there, you know what I mean? I just, you know, the return on Saturday, I wonder what we lost with him not showing up and interrupting Roman's celebration like Cena did, like Edge did, like Lesnar did, you know what I mean? People were wondering if CM Punk was next to do that, remember?
Yeah.
So, you know, I wonder what that feud, those promos, that match would look like. Because I also think, too, Roman beats him. And beats him bad, humbles him, right? Yeah, Cheeky style.
How's Punk going to react when Roman walks out with that needle mover shirt?
Ah! Dust it off, bring it back. God mode.
But with 3 minutes left, thank you all for joining for this episode of the Call It Anything podcast. These 2 episodes. And the next time you'll see us is likely when we will be talking about our top 10 matches of 2023.
Woohoo!
That's going to be a fun one. There's a whole lot to try and get down because, man, while there has been some good wrestling, there's also been a point of thinking for me of like, man, what am I going to put on this list, you know?
Yeah. And what's going to go above the other?
Oh, man. It's going to be interesting, but, you know, it's our favorite time of the year.
Heck yeah.
But with that being said, thank you all for joining. I've been Jack, joined by
Mr. Solis.
Thank you all for joining for another 2 episodes, and we'll catch you all in the next one.